Hey everyone, it's Desiree, and I am here with another part to the journal that I'm calling the Collage. So you can see here that the cover is completely collaged, whether it's with book pages, tissue paper, pattern paper, anything like that. These are the papers that we chose. But this is awesome to use up your scraps. Now, I am going to throw in some fabric every now and again, and that's just one of the pages that we have created so far. So pretty much what this video is going to be, it's going to be long, it's definitely going to be gabby, but you're just literally going to watch me collage. I probably, if I'm not mistaken, I'm doing 2 panels here. Now, what I like to do, there's only a couple magazines that I subscribe to. And I actually, after I read those magazines and I pull out the items that inspire me or things that I'm interested in checking out, I will pull those pages out and then I put them in another binder. But these are the pages that I use as my bases. They're flat, they're flimsy, as I'm putting all of these layers on to this pattern or to this page. I'm able then to layer these onto something else, whether that's a book page, whether it's a tag, whether it's when I want to make a junk, or excuse me, not a junk journal, that's what we're making now. Whether I want to make a journal card, or a tuck, or a pocket, or a wraparound, or a band, anything that I'm looking to do, all I have to do is just cut those up into the shapes that I want. Now, even though I'm just collaging, and I usually do my junk journal videos, you know, just turning on my camera and just talking. This one I am doing as a voiceover because, again, I'm just collaging. I'm just grabbing items that I have. If it's material, I've got these scraps of material that I'm just cutting into, tearing them up so that they have that frayed edge on it, and just having fun laying it down. Sometimes I start gluing immediately. Sometimes I don't. But, okay, back to why I sped this up. So that's why this is kind of going a little bit quicker than normal. It's actually double the time. And I'm doing a voiceover. So, I mean, I would have, again, I'm just grabbing things and throwing it down on paper. Your goal is, I also use that paper, those pages from the magazine, because it helps me to make sure I've covered everything up. I do want to make sure that I have all of these pieces of collage set. Now, that's actually from Tim Holtz. That's his like tissue paper from the rolls that I'm using. I have finally figured out, by the way, the art of the tear ruler. And how? I studied Gail. If anybody has watched any of Gail Agostinelli's videos, she has mastered that tear ruler. I could not. I figured out how. She did it. It's all in how she grabs that paper. Yep. Gail, if you're watching, thank you. I'm just saying. So I'm just tearing down some pieces of some old 12 by 12 scrapbook paper that I'm really not going to use for the full pages or as pages in a junk journal, but I can tear them down and just have smaller pieces. You can see I have my vintage photo ready there in the right hand side. Because I will ink around those images. Now here I'm digging into, there's a couple stamp sets that I have by Stampers Anonymous, And also, I believe it's Crafter's Companion. No. Maybe Crafter's Companion. I'll have them linked below. I know it's Crafter something. But I stamped out these images. So Tim Holtz has a stamp set by Stampers Anonymous called Tickets. And there are matching dies to them that make them look like real tickets. It's amazing. So I usually just take those and stamp them on solid cardstock. My Recollections, that's 65 pounds. And I just stamp it a couple times. I just get a bunch of images and I have them sitting in a baggie, and I just pull them out. I love to collage with them. So every once in a while you're going to see one of those come in. I use them in my clusters video as well. I just think they're really cool. But then also the other stamps, again, the name of the company just escapes me, and it's too far across my room to go get it. They have some beautiful images as well. Again, I do vintage style when it comes to any of my junk journals, whether it's the collage, the altered book, the textured one that I'm putting together, the Black Swan, or anything like that. There is always a vintage style to it. It's just something that I do gravitate. So now I'm going to grab my glue stick, and I'm now going to go to town to just gluing these down onto the page. I do like to use my glue stick for this, only because it's a lighter glue, and I will be sewing over this where the fabric is, and only where the fabric is do I put sew lines. Now, I could cut over them depending upon the piece that I'm looking to cut. Again, it can be a tag, it can be a tuck, it can be a pocket, it could be a journal card, it could be an index card. It could be anything that you're looking for that to be. But just creating those pages, it uses up your scraps. That's the best part of that process. So you can see with the mixture of pattern paper and book pages, coffee dyed papers, dictionary pages, all of those pieces that I have will go down. The last piece that I will add once the collage itself is completed is the tissue paper. The tissue paper will be laid up over these pieces. It kind of, I just like it, making it look like it's tears that are coming through these pages. So that's the last thing that I do just before I sew. So you can see as I'm looking and placing these, I am making sure that I'm covering up that magazine page. Even if I put tissue paper down, I still need to remember, what am I seeing behind that? Is it the white area of the magazine? Does it work with what I'm pulling in? So all of those things I kind of look at when I collage, but I don't think about it for too long. I don't want to overthink this process. It's to be very, very different, very organic, stuff that you're just throwing together. The book pages, I do try to make sure that there's no naughty words, because again, I don't want my recipients to have something and they look at it and go, oh my. I want to make sure that there are no words in there that are just offensive. Because again, I mean, in any book that we use, whether it's a vintage book or whether it's a book of today. I mean, it's just something that we should always look at. So I'm still playing around with this tag, thinking about where to put it. So I finally found that spot. Whenever I do stamp my images as well onto my cardstock, when I do use a stamp, there's another one that, there's two other ones that Stampers Anonymous has. One is ads, so it's all the old-fashioned vintage ads that you can stamp. I do the same thing, use solid cardstock, and then just stamp a bunch of them out so that I have them, so I can just fussy cut around them. And then there's another one where it's just literally postage stamps. I just think it's cute, and they're quick to grab. I do have many postage stamps from when my dad and I, we had a stamp and coin shop, and I would help him in there. So I do have a lot of his duplicates that can be used. So here I'm just pulling in some more of the book pages. Now, if you guys have also seen my card making videos, I still do the odd numbers here. So the book pages are kind of really big. They're bigger chunks of the collage, but I do have to have an odd number of them. Same thing with the fabrics. I've got to have an odd number of those as well. It's just something that my eye will pull out, or eyes, I have two, that it just pulls it out. It's just something that I see, something that I notice. So try to go with the odd. So I'm really surprised that, you know, I've got 3 pieces of fabric here, but I've got 4 pieces of book page there. So I don't know if it's because of the tags that it kind of broke it out. Got my eye away from those book pages, but sometimes I can trick myself, which is really cool. So now I'm just filling in with those and looking where I can put my pieces of fabric that will cover things up there. Here comes the tissue. And this is craft tissue paper. I just kind of let it fall. I let it be wrinkled. I let it be itself. I don't worry about if it's flat. I just tear it, and whatever shape I get, that's where it's going. It's usually coming from the bottom or the top. So it's usually coming in straight up and down. It's a nice, this is actually the tissue paper I use when I wrap my packages, when somebody makes a purchase. So it's really nice and thin. I really like it. I like the texture of it, especially when I can wrinkle it up there. When it comes to, now you don't have to use craft. I like to use craft. You could use a white. You can use a white. You can spray it if you want. There's a lot of things that you can do with tissue paper. I usually crumble it as well first before I put it down, because then it really has some wrinkles. I've done that in other videos. I'm just going to put a little bit of the glue stick down just to hold the fabric in place. Because again, I do want to sew this, so I don't want too much glue to gunk up my needle. So I am just putting it all over the place. And then I just want to grab one more piece. So usually I put a small snip in the fabric, and then I just tear that away. I do keep those scraps, these little strips, because I use those for tag toppers. So again, I very rarely throw anything away. I have baggies all over the place. I'm just saying. I'm going to grab just an extremely small piece of book page, because then I can just sneak it in right there. And there was the fifth page, the fifth book page. I'm going to set that down. And now that page is pretty much ready to be sewn. Now, I will set that aside just so that it can dry just a little bit before I do. Now, again, when I sew it, I sew on the fabric. I don't sew throughout the whole piece, just on the fabric pieces. Now, we are going to do another one. So this one actually went a lot quicker than that first one. So we are going to real quick do that. So it's just these two that I collaged. I do like collaging. I do like layering. It helps me for collaging. Collaging helps me to not think about it, I guess, is the best thing to say. Now, you can usually, I always say, when you have a pattern paper book, all of those papers go together. That's how it's designed. It's how that works. Same thing with a card kit. All of those pieces go together. They are meant to go together. You're not going to go wrong when you pull all of those pieces together. Collaging helps you to look at what it is you're putting together and not focus on the details. At least for me, that's kind of how I look at that. It just allows me to grab the pieces of paper that I like. What's catching my eye? What has that unique shade that will add that piece of jump, or that piece that will stand out? Again, all of these pieces are from different pattern packs, but you can also see that, for me at least, the pattern paper that you're seeing all goes together. So I have a trend. I have a feel of certain things that I do like. When I used to quilt, it was amazing. I'm like, oh my goodness, I don't like anything bright. All of my colors were dark. They were deep. No rainbows. No rainbows at all. Now I am looking at that. I may have a different hue, but I am looking at that. So it's funny, even the pattern papers that we go to, there is a theme to it. There's an underlying look that comes across that. Now, when I put my book pages down, I only put a little bit of glue in the center, because this way now I can just put and tuck my pattern paper throughout these pieces. Again, just layering. Where do I want this on top? Do I want this to push to the back? Do I want this one to push to the front? Just creating those different levels, you're actually creating texture on this page when it comes to collaging. You're creating those different levels. You don't need to have double-sided foam tape. You don't need to have more pieces of cardstock to be stacked or anything like that. It's the paper that's doing that. And because you're inking around the edges, and it can be any color you want. Excuse me. It can be the vintage photo. That's my go-to. My other go-to is potting soil, which is on the archival side. I do like the shades of brown. I do feel that by using that vintage photo, it's helping that piece to stand out. It's giving its own identity, I guess, in other words. But it's allowing it to say, oh, look here. So your eyes are just glazing over the collage as it continues to grow. I don't like to do too big of pieces when it comes to the collage, because then that kind of defeats the purpose of the collage. I will put large pieces down as the base and then build on top of them. This is some Tim Holtz. Again, it's more tissue. It does have a shiny effect. But again, this is all roses. So just to tear around those to get that image out. And then I'll be able to put that down just in a section. And then I'll try to get some vintage photo around it. And then set that in place. Again, I am not looking for it to be flat. I'm good with the wrinkles. I love the wrinkles, actually. And I did just fall in love with this peach rose. And then I also kept the words coming off it as well, because then that could just go right up the side of our piece. Yep, tort, that's okay. Again, we are collaging, so we're not looking for perfection here, and I can just set that right down next to it, and no one will know except all of you that are watching, and that's okay. Now that I know that piece, once I know the pieces that are not, something's not going to be tucked underneath it, now I'm just adding some liquid glue because it's moving faster for me, just down the sides to make sure these pieces are flat as possible. And that's your ultimate goal as well, to make sure that these pieces are laying as flat as possible. You don't want them to lift up at some point. So that's why I'm going to make sure that they are adhered down. With the areas that I have opened up now, our fabric is going to come into play to cover up those magazine pieces. You can see I'm using shades of a golden yellow, a brown, just to add those accents. I've got some really bright colors down in the back, and it's not that I want to tone them down. I just want to keep it very monotone. And it's amazing, I'm watching my hand just, fly things across the other side, so that's just funny. So now what I'm looking for here is which way the fabric should sit on this page. Should it be horizontal? Should it be vertical? And that's what I'm looking for here. Again, just a small amount of glue to make sure that the fabric will just hold in its place. Now, you can see I left that one corner open from the magazine, but that's okay. There's no words there, and it's actually an image. So here's where I would take these to my sewing machine, and I would sew around those edges. Now, as I sew around those edges, again, I'm sticking with the fabric. Now, when we come back for the next episode, I will make sure that I show those pages, because in the next one, we're actually going to cut the 3 pages that I have. We're going to make some pockets, some tucks, some tags, some journal cards, some index cards, all of those things that I keep mentioning. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you'll give collaging a try. I find it very relaxing. As you can see, I do a lot of ripping and throwing, so it's very relaxing. There's really no products. Use what you have in your stash. There is no need for anything else. But if you have any questions, please make sure you leave those down below, and I will make sure I get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you so much for stopping by. A little bit different to do these videos. Trust me, I will go back to just turning that camera on and talking. All right, so Gabby and Long will be returning. Thank you so much for stopping by and just spending this little bit of time with me today out of your day to watch my video. If you haven't already, I'd love for you to subscribe, be part of my group. Remember, everyone, what's most important: enjoy, continue to stay safe, and by all means, always be creative. Till next time, guys.